Why has the FTC been allowing all of these mega companies to form? Why does it seem like it's been asleep at the wheel up until now? Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm an economist. I'm getting my PhD in economics, and luckily for you, I study this stuff. Because up until very recently, FTC had a policy about mergers and acquisitions that we can trace back to our old friend Ronald Reagan. I say friend sarcastically. When the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice are evaluating mergers and acquisitions, they're trying to evaluate how it affects consumers. This is known in economics as consumer welfare, but the definition of consumer welfare has changed a lot over time. Because when you think about it, there are a lot of different factors that you can choose to include and not include when you're thinking about how it harms consumers. A common example is the impact on employees, so how employees might be able to negotiate a living wage if a merger or acquisition were to occur. You could also think about effects to innovation or quality of product, along with the more traditional measures of how mergers and acquisitions affect prices and quantity of goods. First of all, that definition of consumer welfare starting in the Reagan administration only really looked at effects of quantity and prices and not any of these other spillover effects. When you just look at those outcomes, that means that you have a very limited definition about how mergers and acquisitions affect consumers. New FTC Commissioner Lina Khan has started to expand this definition, thinking about how mergers and acquisitions affect consumers among a multitude of levels. This is apparent when you read the newly released horizontal merger guidelines from December of 2023. They encourage these agencies to look at these other factors. Going back to Reagan, one of the most influential books on FTC and DOJ policy over the last 50 years is known as the Antitrust Paradox. It was written by this man, Robert Bork, who was the judge on the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. And what this book stated, and became the standard of a multitude of large merger and acquisition cases, is when we think about the other things that both the FTC and the DOJ are instrumental in when it comes to enforcement, think prohibiting cartels, vertical integration, and price discrimination. That was not the purpose of the Federal Trade Commission of the Department of Justice, according to Robert Bork. And only very recently, in around 2010, did that stance change. So for 40 years, we were kind of stuck in this cycle. The last thing I'll say, and keep this in mind, is that the FTC and the DOJ are government agencies. They only have so many resources, especially with this movement of smaller government. They only have limited resources as dictated by Congress to be able to investigate all of the mergers and acquisitions that go on. Whereas these firms are multi-billion-dollar corporations that can employ as many resources as they need. That's why it's so important to fund government agencies. If you have any questions, let me know.